Hey there, my name is Lanisha, and if there's one thing about me, I know how to get kindergarten, first, and second grade teachers to rock out a writing block. So what I'm gonna do is basically use this YouTube channel as an opportunity to answer questions that I get all the time over on Instagram right here. That's usually where I am when it comes to social media. This year, I'm gonna try to transfer on over to YouTube, but if you wanna come hang out with me on Instagram, you can find me right here at Lanisha_tab. But I get questions in my email, in my Reimagine Writing Club, all the time. Questions, the PD that I do all over the country, there's always a million questions. So I decided to take those questions and create this YouTube channel where I can answer them and then just talk about my absolute favorite thing to teach, which is writing. Well, before we jump in, I want to make sure that you know that there are 4 sections that I'm going to cover when it comes to a writing block. The first section is a warm-up. We're going to get into what it looks like to warm up your writing. The second step is going to be the teaching, the part where you actually give your instruction, you're going to model the skills. The third step is going to be independent writing time, because yes, you have to give kids time to write, all right? The fourth and final is a closure, a share time, a time where you can kind of come back together, look at the learning target, ask yourself, ask your students, did we do what we came to do? Did we get a little bit closer to becoming a stronger writer? And how do we know? So if you are ready to get that going, keep watching. So today's question is, how do you run your writing block? This is one that I get all the time, because I'm realizing that for a lot of educators, one of two things happen. Either you have no writing time at all, or you have a writing time and you cannot figure out, what am I supposed to do with this writing time? You might feel like, okay, I've got 30 minutes for writing, and maybe I have a curriculum, maybe I don't have a curriculum. The curriculum may not be giving my students the practice that they need. Or one thing I hear a lot is, oh my gosh, this curriculum wants them to be writing multiple paragraphs and my students can barely even write a sentence. What do I do? Don't worry, I've got you. I've got you. So let's go ahead and get into what do we do with a writing block. So the first thing I want to talk about is the idea of warming up when it comes to writing. I noticed that in my own classroom, I would always do a math warm up. I would even do a reading warm up. We would warm up the day with a community meeting or a morning meeting. But for whatever reason, when it came to writing, it was bam, mini lesson, let's go. And so that really started to bother me. And through my research over the last couple of years, this idea of syntactic awareness really just took root, and it really blew my mind. I will definitely be doing some videos on syntactic awareness in the future, but for now, very quick understanding of it. It's basically allowing students to grow what they call a grammar ear through a series of very quick exercises that you can do in 5 to 10 minutes a day. Now, on this channel, anything that I show you, some of the things will be free downloads, but every single thing that you will ever see for writing will be in the Reimagine Writing program. So if you want to see more about that, check the description box. I'm definitely going to be putting that information in there, or it might be available on my website or Teachers Pay Teachers. So if you see any of this stuff and you're like, oh, I want that, that's how you can grab it. But I'm also just sharing ideas so that if you want to create it yourself, if you're like, I'm not buying that, I can make that myself, you go. I love that for you. But if you're like, I don't have time, just like I want to access it very quickly, I also got you. All right. So be sure to check out some information in the description box. So back to this idea of syntactic awareness. So building a grammar ear, because the research has told us that over the past 100 years, study after study after study has basically shown that grammar practice in isolation is essentially ineffective. And that makes a lot of sense, right? We're always asking kids to identify the nouns, the verbs, and diagram sentences and things like that. But when are they getting a chance to actually apply it, right? We don't help them with that bridge from being able to identify grammar, parts of speech, etc., and actually putting it in practice. And so syntactic awareness drills are just the perfect answer for that. And so I'll just give you one quick example here. So I warm up with a slide, and this is just one. This is probably one of my favorite ones. It's called sentence stacking. Some people call it sentence combining. And basically, depending on the grade level, you would simply have your students take those 2 sentences and combine them. I offer a list of conjunctions, and I could sit there and do a million worksheets on what a conjunction is and how they work, or I could give them a handful of conjunctions and say, hey, these are some words that we can use in order to put some sentences together. Give it a shot, right? And I'm helping them with that gap where they know how to identify that grammar skill, and I'm helping them to actually put it into practice on a daily basis. I have 9 different routines. This is one of them, okay? And so what we would do is they would come to the carpet with a sticky note or a whiteboard, and I would put up one of these exercises a day. And the most beautiful thing about it, through all of the 9 routines, it's almost putting you in a position to teach something random about grammar every single day, because what's going to happen is a kid's going to put those sentences together in a way that doesn't make sense or sound right, and you're going to have to explain why on the fly, right? And it's so beautiful because it's so organic and it's so in the moment, and kids really get to see that application piece because they're getting this daily opportunity to grapple with language. And so I get this done in less than 10 minutes every single day before we jump into the writing lesson. That's one way I warm up, depending on grade level, depending on school requirements, for wherever I might be teaching. If I have a little bit more time, I will also warm up with an editing drill. So you can see this here is another resource that I offer. And for syntactic awareness and editing drills, I have an entire year's worth of practice slides for kindergarten through 5th grade. Okay, so if that's something that you're interested in, check it out below. I also have a blank DIY version where if you don't want to spend any money and you just want to do it yourself, check the description again, because I have a link that you can click and it will give you the framework for it, and you can just fill in your own sentences, add your own clip art, and go for it. So syntactic awareness and editing. Now here's the deal with editing. I find it so interesting that every time, not every time, but a lot of times when we ask our students to practice editing, Google it right now, editing worksheets kindergarten or editing worksheets 1st grade, whatever. You will usually find a worksheet where there are sentences that need to be edited all the way down the paper. And what are we teaching kids? Every time we edit, it's a single line. Doesn't that make a lot of sense when they get into their writing and we say, oh, honey, you have included a single period in this entire paper, or punctuation, like what's going on? And what do? They get their little marker out or their pencil and they put periods all the way down the side of the paper. And we feel this frustration. You're like, no, you have to listen to the phrase and at the end of the sentence, not the end of the line. But when I think about a lot of the editing practice that kids get from kindergarten all the way on, most of the time when we ask them to focus on editing, it is a single line experience. So I went through and I intentionally created sentences that are appropriate for kindergarten through 5th grade. And we took tier 2 vocabulary and we just created a bunch of sentences. But every single sentence is a multi-line sentence. Depending on the grade level, there might even be 2 sentences. And the idea there is that I, as the teacher, would continually read the sentence or the sentences over and over, and I would ask my students to edit that as I'm reading it, because what I want them to do is listen to where the natural pause is happening, or listen if it to see if it sounds like a question. If my voice goes up at the end, is that something that they are able to hear and then properly edit because they're paying attention to that? So again, it is a drill that's going to help bridge that gap between here's a worksheet, edit all these sentences, make the capital letter, put the end mark, versus, oh man, we have some sentences here. They go across multiple lines. We have to really do some thinking to figure out where those punctuation marks go. That is what I do to warm up. I warm up with editing and syntactic awareness drills. The third part of my warm up that I do every single day, every single writing session, we never write without doing this, is we go over the writing process, okay? So one thing about my writing program, Reimagine Writing, it is what I have been calling a process first framework. So by that, I mean everything I do when it comes to writing is filtered through the writing process. And I have a lot of reasons for that. One, it just makes sense. Like as writers, as an author of 7 different books, this is the process that I go through as an adult who writes. It may not look exactly the same for every writer in the world, but most people go through something similar to this writing process right here. And we think of an idea, we make a plan, we get a draft out, we revise it, we edit, or maybe we pay somebody to edit, and then we publish it. And then the moment that's done, we go right back up to another idea, which is why you'll notice that the writing process that I use is a circle. And I see so many adorable writing process posters and things like that. It might look like a cute little pencil. But for me, I don't want to show that to my students because that sends the message that writing has a beginning and an end. And I never want to hear the words, I'm done in writing, because we are literally never done when it comes to writing. It's something that we are always improving on or trying a different skill or craft move. And so I never want students to think like, okay, I've made it through and I'm done. Like, why do you keep bothering me? So that circle really sends the message that, okay, I may have published a piece of writing, but then the moment I publish it, I'm right back to that idea. So when we warm up our writing, we always say the writing process chant. It's just a chant that I created. It's nothing new. It's just the writing process, but I get kids to memorize it because it provides a framework for even kindergarten students. And I developed this for the first time while teaching kindergarten. I've never seen the success that I've been able to see than the year that I taught writing this way. With this writing process chant, I'm gonna insert a quick little clip here so you can sort of hear what it sounds like. But just know that every kid had to memorize this chant from start to finish. I could walk up to any child in that classroom and I could say, tell me how to write. And they would immediately start saying, well, first things first, you pick an idea. Second step, you have to plan it out. And they would be able to say the writing process chant. And then anytime it was time for me to call them over for their lesson, I could say, oh my gosh, today's lesson is going to teach you a better way to maybe brainstorm your ideas or to make a plan for your writing or to revise and edit. And they knew exactly what I was talking about, even at 5 and 6 years old, because they knew this writing process chant. So go ahead and take a listen to what the chant sounds like and come right back. First things first.
First things first.
Pick an idea.
Pick an idea.
Second step.
Second step.
Plan it out.
Plan it out.
Third step.
Third step.
Right.
Right.
Fourth step.
Fourth step.
You've got to revise.
Gotta revise.
Let's revise.
Let's revise.
Make it better.
Make it better.
Fifth step.
Fifth step.
You've got to edit.
You got to edit.
Edit means
Edit means
fix all the things.
fix all the things.
Last step.
Last step.
Golden step.
Golden step.
Send your book
Send your book
into the world.
into the world.
I had 2 people yesterday. So as you can see with that writing chant, that's something like every single day. I might even use it as a transition. Maybe we're cleaning up one subject and we're going to another. They're putting their things away and they're about to come over to the meeting area so that we can start this writing lesson. I might yell out, first things first, and the entire class is saying, pick an idea. Second step, plan it out. And as they are putting their things away, they know by the end of that chant, I better be on this carpet and I better be ready to learn. Now, this chant, you may have a lot of questions. I'm gonna link a blog post in the description below, and you can really break down like what that looks like. Even this entire writing block is kind of broken down into a blog post format. So if you want to see more, and if you would even want a free writing starter kit, that is something that you can find in that blog post as well. But for now, and I will do future videos just on that chant and how I teach it and how I roll it out. But for now, just know that's something that I do to warm up my writers. Syntactic awareness drills, editing drills, and then doing that writing process chant. And I know it sounds like a lot now, but in actual practice, it really does only take about 10 minutes to do those things. All right, it's really quick. So moving into the second part of the writing block, that's your teaching, okay? So this is where, for me, I was at a school, we did not have a writing curriculum. We were standards-based. So I only had a handful of standards to teach that particular year. And it was always, we were either writing a narrative piece, an informative piece, or a persuasive piece, because I live in the state of Indiana, and those were the only 3 writing standards for the grade level that I was teaching at that time. And so we would just cycle through those 3 genres, and we would spend about a month on them because we would jump into a unit of study. And so if it was a narrative unit of study, All of my mini lessons would be about developing narrative writing. So thinking about ideas through a narrative lens. What's the best graphic organizer to plan it out for a narrative piece of writing? What does it look like when I'm going to organize and structure my writing and write, the third step of the writing process? Then we're going to revise. And in later videos, I'll break this down more, but those syntactic awareness drills that I talked about at the beginning of this video actually end up becoming the best revision strategy. So I believe in this video, we talked about sentence stacking. That is a strategy that once my students are really good at it and they know how to do it, when we get to fourth step, you've got to revise. That is an example of one strategy that I would say, okay, you know how to do sentence stacking and combining sentences to make a stronger sentence. Today, when you go revise your narrative writing, I want you to find 2 sentences that you can put together and combine just like we do in syntactic awareness warm-ups. And the students are able to do it because we've practiced it so many times in the syntactic awareness warm-up position. So that's what it would look like in my teaching position, right? I'm gonna make those connections for them. I'm gonna model for them. It's gonna be the time where I show them exactly what I want them to do. One of the most important parts of teaching, especially when it comes to writing, is modeling. So every single lesson I am writing, I am thinking aloud. Whatever the teaching point is, I'm going to show them what it looks like in my writing. So I will launch the unit by showing them how I'm going to fill out my idea collection sheet. One of the things that I like to do is batch collect ideas at the beginning of a unit, because I don't want to hear any child say, I can't think of anything to write, Mrs. Tab. Oh, yes, you can. And I know you can because we took a session or 2 at the very beginning of this unit and we batch collected ideas that we're going to carry us through the rest of the unit. And I will do more videos on that as well in the future. But for now, just know we take some time and we collect ideas all at once and we house them in one paper, in one form, so that they can continually go back to that and they can pick another idea to work with. But I'm gonna model that. I'm gonna model what it looks like to use the graphic organizer that I select for that unit. I'm gonna show them every single thing that I want them to see, okay? I'm also gonna collect data during my mini lesson position. I'm gonna offer a lesson, I'm gonna model it, and then I'm gonna give them a very quick exercise that will let me know whether or not they were able to understand what the point of the lesson was today. And here's just a very simple example of that. Maybe it is a lesson where I am showing them how to get ideas for something. And I want to know, I'm teaching kindergarten or first grade. Do they even know what an idea is? So I might have a little paper like this that before they go off to write, this is their ticket that they have to clear with me. And as they fill that out, they bring it to me. And if I don't understand what they were trying to communicate, I'll very quickly check in with them and I'll say, okay, so what is an idea? And I will wait for them to say, oh, it's something that you think of that you can do as a writer, and we collect them and we can turn them into story. Great. Give me your paper. Here's your writing folder. Off you go. And then they go put into practice what it is that we are working on. Now, the management of that is, those are videos I'm very excited to talk about, because I'll talk about how I manage my writing block. But this video is really focusing on just like what happens in each block, but we'll get into some management and organizational videos very, very soon. Once the teaching is done, I've collected some data. I know which students are ready to rock and roll. If any students are still confused, then I keep them right there on the carpet and I pull a small group that lasts maybe 5 minutes, maybe not even 5 minutes. I might simply say, hey, we're gonna do a quick reteach of the skill that we just did in the mini lesson, and then I'm gonna send them off to go write. So from there, that's the second part of my writing block. The third part of my writing block is independent writing, right? They're all out, they're writing. That is my turn to start circulating the classroom. The most beautiful thing that I have found in the way that I teach writing is the fact that it went from a very frustrating time of day where I would teach the lesson that may have been in the manual or whatever, and I would model it the best that I could, and I would send them off to go write, and within the first 20 seconds, the first little hand would go up, and I would run over and I'd say, oh my gosh, how can I help you, sweetie? Like, let's sit down. And I would spend maybe 5 or 6 minutes trying to get the student going with the writing. And then I would say, oh, are you feeling better about that? And they would say, not really. And I'd be like, well, I've got to go. So sorry about that. And I would stand up and I'd turn around. And what do you think I would see? Every other child in that classroom also had their hand up, and they saw me sit with that student for 5 or 6 minutes, and they wanted me to spend the same amount of time with all of them. And I very quickly became the teacher that was like, ooh, the teaching of writing, yeah, we may have to skip that today because math is going pretty well. And I think we can just maybe keep rocking with math until lunchtime instead of squeezing in that writing lesson. It was a very frustrating time for me. And so what I love now about the way I teach writing is that they are so independent because they know the writing process. They know exactly what has to be done on each level of the writing process. They are able to get in there and execute without me. So my job during independent writing is to circulate the classroom, check in, coach, get this. I actually get to teach, like novel idea, right? I actually get to get in there and teach. Whereas I used to just run around the classroom trying to, create some kind of conference schedule. Some kids didn't even know where their papers were. Other kids were saying that they were done. I would get their writing, open it up, and there'd be blank pages and holes everywhere. And it was a very trying time for many, many years. But it's so different now. And I love teaching writing. And my students, it became their favorite part of the day. They would come in, put their backpacks away, and I'd have my little morning activities out. And they would say, Mrs. Tab, do I have to do my morning bucket? Because I really want to get to the next step of the writing process. So can I just go get my writing folder? You absolutely can. But it's because I shifted the power to them. They were so empowered because they knew that writing process so well that they conceptually understood what it means to write, what it means to get an idea from your brain to a published piece of writing that can be sent out into the world. And they knew the steps, right? We'll break all that down in future videos. I know you're probably so tired of hearing me say that. I apologize, but I really will. I'm going to keep breaking that down. If there is a specific thing that you hear in this video and you're like, oh, I need to know more about that, be sure to leave a comment. I'm going to be all over these comments and really listening and trying to help where I can. So be sure you subscribe because I'm going to be putting out videos consistently this year. Leave comments. I promise I'll be there. So that brings us to the final part of this writing block, which is simply a closure, a share time. That's going to be at a very important time for a few reasons. One, you always want to bring your students back together to see what they did and to see how they're feeling about their learning. I am a firm believer in having a really tight learning target for whatever it is I'm about to teach, because I need to know what I'm expecting my kids to do for that day. And then I need the kids to be able to say, yes, I am on my way to meeting that target, or, Mrs. Tab, I'm still lost. I need to get some help, right? So if we don't give them an opportunity to know exactly what they're supposed to be doing for that time period, that's very difficult for them to be held accountable because they don't even know what they were supposed to be doing. So bringing them together for a quick 2 to 3 minute share is so critical for that learning target work. But also, I love to shout students out during that time. And it really does matter because you know how kids are. They can be a bit, competitive, or they want to do their best. So if I find that Lily has done this amazing thing in writing, I'm going to shut the class down and I'm going to say, class, you have to see what Lily did today. Your mind is going to be blown. Look what she did. Maybe Lily attempted dialogue or something in a book, or maybe her illustration was out of this world. And I'm going to call everybody together and I'm going to act like that is the coolest thing I have ever seen in my life. And I'm going to interview Lily very quickly and say, how did you even know to do that? And then I'll say, oh, did you guys hear? Lily said that she looked at the teaching chart and she tried the same thing that Mrs. Tab tried, but in her own way. And I'm going to just do the whole thing. And then before I let them go, I'm going to say, who thinks that tomorrow during writing, you're going to try the same strategy that Lily did? And of course, all the little hands shoot up and they can't wait. And the moment they get to writing the next day, I'm going to remind them, oh, don't forget, you all said that you wanted to try the strategy that we talked about yesterday. It's time. Are you ready? And they're so excited. The more theatrical I am, the bigger deal I make everything seem, that transfers, right? The energy is there for writing. It's exciting. The kids are ready. And it's contagious, right? So you do have to put on a little bit of a show. I've just found that to be very successful. And so with that, that's writing, right? So we warm up with editing or syntactic awareness drills. We do the chant. I teach at mini lesson. The most important part there is I'm going to model the skill and I'm going to collect some data to see, did you even get what I wanted you to do for that particular lesson? I'm going to get them out to write, and they are going to write via the writing process. Okay. And again, there's a lot to break down there. It's coming. If you can't wait, don't forget, go to the description box. I have a link there to a blog post that really does break down how I get my kids in writing zones and how I organize materials and how I get them to be this independent troop of writers that just do such an amazing job. And then from there, we come back together, we close the lesson out, we revisit the learning target, we set goals for the next day, and then it's time to go. That's it. All right. So thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget, subscribe. Please hit that notification bell because I'm going to be consistently posting. My goal is 2 videos a week this year. So it's going to be a lot, but I'm going to make sure I stay on top of it because this is something that's really important. Don't forget, if you want to connect with me on Instagram, you can do that by checking out the description box below as well. And I will see you in the next video.